Come take some of our history classes and let us help you make history yourself.
I will empower the next generation. This is my education. This is my state.
I will challenge the future because this is my education. This is my state.
Find out what you can achieve. We are Mississippi State University Meridian.
All right, as promised, I told you guys that I would start doing some light remediation videos for you. So this one might be a little bit longer because we're going to do the entire chapter at one time. Do not forget your assessment on Chapter 14 will be on Wednesday. Monday will be ACT Boot Camp. Tuesday we'll be taking the actual ACT, and then Wednesday we will take Chapter 14. So if you look here, we see our buddy old Snickelgruber, Adolf Hitler, staring back at us through the screen, and this chapter covers the coming of war, 1931 to 1942. The objectives for the section are draw conclusions about cause and effect of the U.S. involvement in war, and explain and analyze the U.S. role in international organizations in the 20th century. So the first thing we see in section 1 is we see a picture of Hitler here doing his speech. You got a picture of his book here, Mein Kampf, which translates into My Struggle. November 1918, World War I ends. Remember, the United States had told the other allies that we did not need to kick Germany while they were down. They were already defeated. They're broken. But France pretty much does its own thing and decides to just hammer Germany with reparations, as you see here on the bottom. You see the reparations essentially pinning down the German citizen here. Then you see terms. The German people must pay for all damages to civilians on land or sea or from the air. But Germany's going to resent it. Meaning they're not going to like this one bit. Really, who can blame them? Italy and Japan, both allies, had expected far more land for their sacrifices. And like I said in class, up until really Mussolini rises to power in Italy, Italy and Japan are going to kind of go to the corner and cry, crying over spilled milk. All right, number 2 talks about totalitarianism. Again, I told you if you just look at the first 5 letters as total. It means one person is in total control, far more extreme than a dictator. Here we have Stalin and Lenin. Remember Vladimir Lenin, he's the former leader of the Soviet Union. He dies in 1924. In his last manifesto, he tells them, do not let Stalin get in charge. He's crazy, he's ruthless. Whatever you do not let him go or let him become the leader. But Stalin does. It says here in Russian, Stalin means man of steel, responsible for the deaths of at least 10 million people. He uses murder and executions to maintain his power and authority. Intimidation, fear and propaganda keeps him in power. When all numbers are figured in, Stalin actually kills more people than Hitler. But like I said, you're not going to hear a lot out of it because we're going to come to call him Uncle Joe because he will become a formidable ally in World War II. The propaganda that was spread by Stalin, best buddies forever, like I told you guys, a lot of these images were photoshopped. Stalin would actually have the pictures recreated with him showing like he was strong and that he was in tune with Lenin and that they were just best buddies. Here, this is in your textbook, gives you some characteristics of a totalitarian state. Then we get Benito Mussolini, the fascist party, post-war economic problems, the communists are gaining control, and government just seems really weak to Mussolini, and he doesn't like this. It says in 1919, Mussolini founded the fascist party. Trump's nationalism and promise to make Italy great again. Where have we heard that from? Outlaws political parties, takes over the press, created secret police, organized youth groups to indoctrinate and suppress strikes. And remember, when we say the word indoctrinate in history, it means we bring them to thinking alike or thinking like us. Opposed liberalism and socialism. And then we here have our Adolf, OMG, Benito Mussolini, I love your work. The Weimar Republic, named after the town of Weimar. Remember, the Treaty of Versailles, what ends World War I, and it essentially cripples Germany. It's just a bad deal overall for Germany. You're going to lead to the rise of the Nazis, the National Socialist Workers' Party. Remember, I told you to make sure you understood that if you see Nazis, it means National Socialist Workers' Party. And if you see National Socialist Workers' Party, it means Nazis. 1930s, the worldwide Great Depression had hit the Weimar Republic very hard. Remember, we talked about in the last chapter that the Great Depression was not just limited to the United States, that it was everywhere. It was a global issue. Hitler's going to come to power. He's going to speak in several engagements and rise to power in the Nazi Party. He tries to overthrow the government, but he's not as strong as he would like to be during this time. He is sentenced to prison where he writes Mein Kampf, his famous book. Again, translated into English, it means My Struggle. And he tells essentially what he's going to do, what he thinks the problems are. He criticizes people that he doesn't agree with, people that he has different ideologies with or different ideas with. Very anti-Semitic or prejudiced against Jewish people. Now, remember, when you see anti-Semitic, it means racist against Jews or prejudiced against Jews. Okay, and we'll talk about that a lot more in the next chapter where we actually fight World War II and we talk about the Holocaust. Hitler comes to power. Remember, he comes to power 100% legally. By 1935, he is the voice of Germany. He is the symbol of his totalitarian regime. Is the swastika. Remember, we looked at those in class. Secret police crushed all opposition. He controlled the press, meaning he controlled the newspapers, he controlled the radios, he controlled what books were written, what authors wrote about. State-controlled education system. Then the education system was indoctrinated with Nazi ideologies. So essentially, they were teaching kids your age and younger Nazi ideas, Nazi ideology. His policies eventually end the Depression in Germany. Remember, Hitler, according to the Treaty of Versailles, he is not supposed to have a military. However, he goes against the treaty and begins to rebuild his military, tanks, airplanes, guns, bombs, battleships, all the good stuff that you would need to wage war. But by doing so, he puts the German people back to work. And as I've said time and time again, the number one hunger that you can use against people or the number one weapon, I should say, is hunger. So he was putting people back to work, and a lot of people fell into the trap of believing that he was doing the great things that he said he was doing for Germany. Japan begins, as I said, they kind of went over in the corner and whined and cried. But remember, Japan is an island. Here you see the island of Japan, and they began picking on China. Like I said in class, if Japan was to pick on China today, Japan would be gone. It says Japan controlled its domestic foreign policies as well as its abundant natural resources. And then we have the rape of Nanjing. Don't worry about the F here. Nanjing, they brutally murder over 200,000 people. They essentially burn the city down. No one was safe. Men, women, children. Just very, very sadistic action by the Japanese there. The League of Nations, very, very weak. Really, all I want you to know about the League of Nations is when the United States refused to join, they really had no bite. Big dog, little bite, because they did not have a military to back it up without the United States. So the League of Nations is kind of just oh yeah, we're the League of Nations, and that's about it. Excuse me. Hitler and Mussolini threatened the peace. Treaty of Versailles essentially crippled Germany. We know that. The reparations, they can't have a military. From 33 to 36, he rebuilt the German economy and dramatically enlarged the Army, Navy, and Air Force in direct defiance of the Treaty of Versailles. In the mid-30s, Hitler began his movement of unifying all German people, or Germanic people, into one Reich. When you see the word Reich, it refers to a state. But the funny thing is, and you all know this, was Hitler German? No. Little Pipsqueak was Austrian. Appeasement. You're going to grant concessions to make someone happy. Remember, we let Hitler have this country, then he took this one, then he took that one, and nobody really did anything because he said that was as far as he was going to go. He wasn't going any further. That was it, no more. But all it did was embolden him, make him feel brave, make him feel really good about his army and what he's doing. Section 2 is from isolation to involvement. 1937, Japanese attacks on China. We've already talked about this. I just realized that I'm actually using the wrong PowerPoint. So, sorry about that. I knew I was missing some pictures that I used in class, so I apologize. Just give it a second. It'll open up, hopefully. Here we go. Go back through the pictures again real quick. Help you. This is a World War I rally in Germany. As you see the circle here with the arrows, there's our boy Hitler. He doesn't have the funny mustache yet or the bad comb over. But yeah, this is where we knew what Hitler was doing. We talked about him, we seen him, we heard him. But this wasn't a big deal here. But in just a few short years, we go from this to this. By this time, it is a what have we gotten into? And then we go to this. Hundreds of thousands would gather just to hear him speak. If you were lucky enough to just put a hand on him. As I mentioned earlier, the swastika. This is the swastika here, which is actually a Native American symbol for good luck and prosperity and good health. Why Hitler picked that, I don't really know. Here you see the people reaching out to touch him. You see all the people with the Nazi salute, Sieg Heil. You see Hitler, he's just loving it up. Again, the League of Nations, you got Mussolini and Hitler here together. It says, I've waited for this day for so long, I hope it never ends. Little meme to throw in there. And then you got Stalin in the corner. I want to be popular too, guys. So, back to where we stopped earlier. The Japanese keep attacking China. It shocks Americans, and Japan's doing this without a declaration of war. They're doing this just simply because we can. Roosevelt's going to criticize what Japan does, but he never says we're going to do anything about it. He says the reign of terror and international lawlessness, the bombing of civilian populations, and the horrible acts of cruelty. So in other words, what Roosevelt is saying is, hey, Japan, we see what you're doing. It's not right. We see it. Just be aware. Roosevelt's words do not faze Japan. And then Hitler launches a blitzkrieg against Poland. Again, blitzkrieg means a lightning war. If you're familiar with football, take off Krieg, and he blitzes Poland, meaning he brings the thunder. Britain and France see a need to seek action, but Hitler's more worried with the Soviet Union. And what he's going to do is, August 23rd, 1939, he's going to sign a Nazi-Soviet non-aggression pact with the Soviets on a promise not to attack each other. But this is going to come back and make Hitler look really, really bad on the world stage. So now you have the Axis powers, Germany, Italy, Japan, and several other smaller nations. You have the Allies, which is Britain, France, and eventually the United States, Soviet Union, and China. April 9th, 1940, Hitler attacks Norway and Denmark. Shortly afterwards, the Netherlands, Belgium, and Luxembourg. Hitler feels like he is unstoppable. He feels like his army's unstoppable. His war machine no one can handle it. Hitler begins setting his sights on France. When he takes France, he makes the French surrender to him. If you were listening, I told you the story about the rail car and how Germany had surrendered to France in the rail car. Well, when Hitler takes Paris, he goes into the museum, takes the rail car out, and makes the French surrender to him. And then we have a man by the name of Winston Churchill, Prime Minister of Great Britain. Like we said, Hitler set his sight. He wants to take Britain now. France falls in 35 days, but Great Britain's not going to go down as easy. Churchill says, we shall go on to the end. We shall fight in France. We shall fight on the seas and oceans. We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall defend our island, whatever the cost may be. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender. Again, German aggression, 1936 to 1941. And you see here, he almost controls all of Europe. This is how far Hitler gets. Parts of North Africa, again, almost the entire continent of Europe, except for Sweden, United Kingdom, and Ireland, Switzerland, and Spain. I had some students ask, why did he not go to Spain? Well, by the time he could get to Spain, the United States was involved, and that just was not going to happen. Americans favor isolationism. Now, isolationism just means we're going to stay here and mind our own business. We're not going to get involved. We want to be neutral. Okay. Again, this is in your textbook talking about the bomb shelters under the streets. Interventionists urge support for the war, and we do the Neutrality Acts of 1939. Neutrality Acts of 39 just says we will sell goods to belligerent nations as long as you pay cash and you carry it on your own ship. We're not going to put it on credit. We're not going to deliver it. If you want it, you pay cash, you come get it. Sending aid to Britain was a way for the Americans to stay out of the war. And then here you see the political cartoon, the only way we can save her. You have the woman here that personifies Lady Liberty. She has democracy written on her leg. America, the last refuge of democracy. And over here you see war-mad Europe. The water here signifies the Atlantic Ocean. And Europe is essentially on fire. It's burning. And Lady Liberty is saying, stay out for my sake as well as your own. And here you have Uncle Sam, who personifies the United States. And he's looking over the ocean thinking, do we need to get involved? Roosevelt inches toward involvement. He sees what's happening, but we've got to do something. Okay. You have the Selective Service Act. Guys, when you turn 18, you're required by federal law to sign up for the Selective Service in case the need for a military draft comes up. They have a pool to select from. Election of 1940, again, all you need to know is FDR wins. Wendell Willkie is almost no competition. Now, this chart right here, I would pay close attention to this. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail because I'm trying to make this video short, but I would know a lot of information off this chart. Hint, hint, hint. Following the 1940 election, FDR gets more and more support for the war. January 6, 1940, he gives the 4 freedoms: freedom of speech, freedom of worship, freedom from want, freedom from fear. A lot of you have heard this speech and just really didn't know it because FDR says the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Okay, if you want to watch the speech, it's actually a really good speech. It's all over YouTube, so if you want to watch it, feel free. Lend-Lease gives aid to the Allies. He believed the best way to stay out of the war was to give aid to Britain. But here's the question. If we're giving aid to Britain and not Germany, are we truly staying neutral? All right, the Lend-Lease Act gives FDR the power to sell, transfer, title to, exchange, lease, lend, or otherwise dispose of to any such government any defense article whenever he thought it was necessary in the interest of the defense of the United States. Okay, and then you go down and it says nothing less than economic declaration of war against Germany and the Axis powers. U-boats, again, a U-boat is a German submarine. So on a state test or my test, if you see it written as a German U-boat, it's just a submarine. If I ask you what is the name of a German submarine, it's a U-boat. Hitler was not blind to America's support of the Allies. So in the fall of 41, he orders German U-boats to attack American ships. We have one that is hit, one that is shot at. And in retaliation, FDR tells our ships, sink every U-boat you see. America enters the war, Section 3. We got trouble in the Pacific again. Japan is just going berserk, doing their thing after natural resources, or as we called it, booty. Here you have Hideki Tojo, Japanese Prime Minister, known for his sharp mind. Very, very smart, very well educated. It says throughout the summer of 41, Japan and the U.S. attempted to negotiate an end to their disagreement, but it fails. The Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. There's so many videos out there on YouTube you can watch. You can go into the National Archives. You can watch the movie Pearl Harbor. It's about 80-85% historically accurate. I do not think the love story happened the way it's portrayed, but who knows. It says, while Japanese delegates were negotiating, the Japanese Navy sailed for Pearl Harbor, Hawaii under the command of Vice Admiral Chichi Nagumo. 6 aircraft carriers, 360 planes, an assortment of battleships, destroyers, cruisers, and submarines. Their primary mission was to eradicate the U.S. Navy from the Pacific. In other words, they were there to get rid of the United States Navy. Okay, it wasn't a scare tactic. It wasn't a surprise. They were there to kill and to get rid of the United States Navy in the Pacific area. Pictures here. Forget what carrier this is, but if you look closely, you can see the bombs right here on the bottom of the plane, and they're getting ready to take off for Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. Again, this is the aftermath. You see the rescue boats going out to attempt to save people. Here you see the lifeline going down, sailors in the water. That is the USS Arizona at the moment that it was shot, or the moment that the bomb exploded in the forward magazine where all the powder was at. And here you see Japanese bombers and fighters. They look like just little black dots. This is actually some of the planes. This is it in color. Again, I don't think the color photo does that justice. Just my opinion. Aerial photo from a Japanese bomber. If you look down here, you can see the Japanese writing. This went back to Tokyo and was placed in newspapers that went all over Japan. You can see the geyser from the torpedoes that have just hit the water. This torpedo that's dropped here is en route to this battleship. This one here en route to that battleship. FDR there, he is doing his Day of Infamy speech. And if you notice, FDR, although he has polio, is standing again. FDR is never portrayed, or his handicap is never portrayed by the media. The speech, this is actually FDR's handwriting, where you can see where he went in and marked things out and added different things into the letter. And it says, yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in, and it used to say in world history. He marks it out and goes with infamy. But what's interesting is you see the speech is actually written the day of the attack. This speech was given December the 8th. It's when we get the Congressional Declaration of War against Japan. December the 11th, Germany's going to do something very stupid and declare war on us. So from that point on, it's really, really game on. Again, the movie Pearl Harbor, book that I'm starting to read now, A Matter of Honor, All the Gallant Men, folks, I highly recommend you read this book. It's a very easy book to read. It does not read like a history book. It reads more like a story. Awesome book. Like I said, I would loan mine out, but it's actually signed by Mr. Stratton, so I'm pretty proud of it. But if you get a chance, it's on Amazon. You can get on the library. You can probably get it at the library. Very, very, very well written. There wasn't just military casualties. There were civilians. Okay, remember, this happens on a Sunday morning. So Sunday morning about 8 o'clock, probably going to church. You see here the man, it looks like he has maybe a dress shirt with a jacket on. His wife is slumped over. What if there were kids in there? Okay, they're probably not alive. Pearl Harbor Memorial, again, the 7 windows on each side and on top, 21-gun salute. And we still have oil leaking from the Arizona today. Base housing for Luke Field is steadily coming out, but if you look from the aerial photograph on Google Maps, you can still see runway 22 left over from Pearl Harbor, or left over from World War II, I should say. And again, Pearl Harbor, you have the USS Arizona Memorial. You have the Battleship Missouri Memorial. And like I said, this is where a lot of veterans came to come full circle once the war was over and the Missouri was retired. Because right here at the Arizona, you have where the war began. And then here at the Missouri, you have where it ended. I should say Arizona where it began, Missouri where it ended. I think I got them mixed up. This is in your textbook, page 454. If you want to read it, it just goes and tells you a little more information on Pearl. The island, Ford Island, which we just looked at on Google Maps, you can see how the battleships are lined up. Result of the attack, 2,500 are killed, 8 battleships damaged, 3 destroyers destroyed, 3 light cruisers damaged, 160 aircraft destroyed, and 128 more damaged. The U.S. battle fleet is out of commission for almost 6 months. Japan realized one problem. During the attack, our aircraft carriers were out and untouched. They canceled the third wave of attacks and hightail it back toward Tokyo. And here we go showing the women coming in, because once Pearl Harbor happens, the patriotism for the United States goes berserk. And people began to join up. And we had to have people go into the factories to replace the men that were going off to war. So women really, really stepped up. And history is starting to show us now that, and actually prove that women had a very, very strong hand in the American victory in World War II. The House voted 388 to 1 to declare war. on Japan. One person said no, and that is the lady you see here on the screen, Jeanette Rankin from Montana. Destroy the Mad Brute. This is some of the propaganda that you would see coming out during this period. Smack the Japs, volunteer for submarine service, sub-spotted, let them have it. On action, join the U.S. Marine Corps. Okay. Propaganda posters were huge. They were very, very, how should I say it? Not very politically correct. Let's just say that. Smack the Japs. Okay. There's some more posters out there that are much worse than what you see here. Airborne all the way. They've got the guts. Stay Army, stay airborne. Avenge Pearl Harbor. Remember Pearl Harbor. Avenge Pearl Harbor. So we played off the memory of Pearl Harbor to rally that war cry, to really get people involved in coming to the war. Then you have women coming in. Women join the Army Nurse Corps, in the Air Force. And you got to remember, during this time, it was still the U.S. Army Air Corps. The Air Force is not yet quite its own branch. Then we have General Douglas MacArthur. He's in the Philippines. We've taken the Philippines essentially from the Spanish-American War. Japan is going to come and overtake the Philippines. The United States, we will retreat and leave. Before we leave, General MacArthur tells the Filipino people, I will return, and he will. Then we have the Bataan Death March. If you recall, I said if you were a soldier or a military member in World War II, you wanted to be captured by the Germans, not the Japanese, because the Japanese, they were very, very brutal. 75,000 Allied soldiers would die. Japanese force sick and injured to march 55 miles up the Bataan Peninsula, and more than 7,000 Americans and Filipino troops died during the march itself. Just some artist renditions of the march. Again, very, very brutal. You see here, this guy is on the verge of being decapitated by the samurai sword. You see these guys here, got the bayonet on the rifle, and guys tied to the post. And this is POWs being marched. When we got pictures of our American soldiers, this is what they look like. And we were not happy about it. It was a very sad situation. They would starve them in order to make them work. We strike back with the Doolittle raid. You've seen this on the movie Pearl Harbor. Nighttime bombing raid from the deck of the USS Hornet. Here you see the USS Hornet with a B-25 taking off. Here's Lieutenant Colonel James Doolittle, who we just lost just a few years ago. He has the Japanese medals in his hands, and if you recall from the movie, he's going to wire them to the bombs and give them back. These were friendship medals given to, I think, the Secretary of the Navy in the hopes of a continued friendship. And Colonel Doolittle got the medals and said he's going to give them back to the Japanese via the bomb. Some pictures of the USS Hornet going en route to Tokyo, or en route to do the Doolittle raid on Japan. This is actual Colonel Doolittle's plane taking off from the USS Hornet. And then you have the Battle of the Coral Sea, May 1942. What I want you to know about the Battle of the Coral Sea is we win, and it gives us a lot of hope, and it gives Japan a wake-up call to, hey, this war's not going to be as easy as we thought it is, and we might have a formidable fight on our hands. Just some numbers here from the Battle of Coral Sea show you the damage that was done, and that is it. I would highly, highly recommend reading over your AMSCO guide. You don't have to read it word for word. Just look for key terms, look for dates. And if you have any questions, feel free to send me an email or send me a remind message. And just to see who watches this video, I'm going to give you a bonus question from something that came from this video. I think I'll tell you the question the day of the test. But if you've watched the video, you will get this answer very, very easily. See y'all later.